We are back with more or less. Let's continue building our web application. I reloaded my file. I don't know why my text editor had the wrong highlighting or had no highlighting at all, right? I added the script, but there was no problem. I just reloaded the file. And so we have the script, but we don't do anything yet. So let's write what we should do here. So let's just comment on what should be done, then we'll do it. So we can write what's called a comment with space // and that would just be something for us developers to read and get some grasp of what's going on, but it's not really going to be executed or anything by the script, just a comment. So first we have to click, we handle the event, it's going to come here. Well, we had to find out what the user typed in the text area, right? Once we have that, create a new entry element, and then for that element we need to inject the text into the new element. Then we have to style the new element with entry class. Right? And then that's all in memory though. We need to inject into the page. So we have to append, what's called append, new entry to the list of entries the user sees. And then finally clear the text area so the user won't see the remainder of what you typed before. Maybe we forgot something, maybe not. If we do, we're gonna do it later. How can we find out what the user typed in the text area? Well, we know how to grab elements. Maybe if we grab the text area, we can find out what's typed there. That's a good idea. We can do the same thing we did for the button on line 1. We can do document, call on, hey, please get the element by ID. And let's give it a, let's name it the ID, give an ID for the text area. Maybe new entry text area. About that. Well, I'm gonna put it as a variable. And create a variable const, name of the variable equals to assign the value on the right hand side to the variable that's whose name is on the left hand side. I will call this, we can call it text area, whatever. That's the name of my variable. Now, how can we get the text? Const entry text. Let's create a variable to hold the value of that entry. So I'm creating a variable const, name of the variable equals a value on the right hand side. Well, that value somewhat can be obtained from the element we grabbed. But how? What's the name of the property? Well, let's find out in a very useful way I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how to debug using the dev tools from your browser. Very, very useful. Do it all the time. You need to know this. What I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to click the button and I want to find out what's going on in the program, in the script, by the time I hit line 4. Line 4 will be the line with the breakpoint. Breakpoint is going to be the point in the code, in the source code, that the debugger is going to stop, and it's going to let you know, hey, I stopped execution at this specific line. You can investigate what's going on right now, and then tell me when you want to continue. So let's learn how to do that. So I save my script, go back to the browser. Now, there's one thing I need to tell you. The browser likes to cache things. Caching things meaning saving it and not having to load it again because you already loaded it once. So you don't need to retrieve that again. So to be efficient, the browser does caching. It likes to store things so it can be reloaded or reused later without the need to actually retrieving it again. So because of that mechanism, sometimes your script, the changes might not be reflected right away when you reload the page. So I always advise you, go to the network tab of your browser and disable the cache. It's probably unchecked by default. I recommend you put disable cache as long as you are developing your application. When you're done developing, I recommend you flip it back so it becomes efficient to retrieve web application, website resources as you're browsing the web normally, okay? But while we're developing, I'm gonna disable the cache. So every time it downloads the script over and over again, instead of looking at what's already saved. With that, I'm gonna reload. You can see, I can see in the network tab the resources I downloaded, the index HTML, the styles.css, and the script.js. Great. Now go to the sources tab, locate the script that you created, in this case script.js. Now you're going to place a breakpoint in the line here. Now another way of loading, if there's too many files, you can say Control P or Command P for Mac. Type the name of the file, script.js, enter, and it will open for you. For example, I'm here. Okay. Now, this is going to open up the file. I want to place a breakpoint in line 4. So I click on the number 4, and it adds this circle that's kind of red. Now, if I click the button, you can see paused in debugger, meaning it paused the execution of the script at this line. It hasn't done the line yet. It's about to do. You can see on the right hand side there are controls to tell if you want to go on, resume F8. If you want to use step over next function call, next line, for example, F10, and so on, other controls. If you want to deactivate the breakpoints that you set, if you want to see a breakpoint here and other stuff. Anyway, focus on the breakpoint in line 4, click the button, stop to the breakpoint. I want to investigate if there is a way for us to get the text that the user typed. Well, it's not very useful here because I didn't type anything, so I'm going to click this play for the script to go on. I'm back here, I'm going to type something. I'm going to click write again, pause at the line 4. Now, if I hover over text area, it's undefined because it hasn't executed yet. I can press F10. That's the second icon here. And it executes that. Now, I can look at hover over text area. Oh, it says no. Why? So it could not find the element. Do you know why? Did I miss something? I wrote a name here for the ID, but does that element really have the ID? Click elements, text area does not have ID. That's why I could not grab it, because it doesn't know about it. So go back to the editor, text editor, index. You need to give text area an ID. And that's the same thing that we type in our code in script.js, new entry text area, line 4. So that's the ID of the text area. So it would be possible for document.getElement by IDs to find the text area. Nice. Save the file to the browser. You can reload. Type something. Click the button. Now we're in the pause at the breakpoint in the debugger. We can let it go. F10. Execute the line 4. Now you can hover over text area and it's telling you a lot of stuff in here. So it really did find the element. You can see on the left hand side, it highlights that element as I hover over the variable name. So this variable is pointing to the element text area. You can see on the left hand side it's highlighted, and it has many properties. I'm looking for some property that will give me the content of that element. Well, we can just find out the DS, A, SDS, wherever that text that I type by just looking here. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff, so look at that. Value. There's a property called value, whose value is DS, AES, so on, what I typed. So this is the property we're going to use to access, to get the value of what the user typed. So that's nice. We learned to debug and find out what's in the text area. Let's go on. Back to the script. I now know that the entry text is going to be text area dot value. This is how you access a property on an object. So dot value give me that entry text. Nice. Now we need a new element, a new entry. Let's create a new entry. We can use document.createElement. Now createElement is a function that allows you to create an element. Now you need to give as a string. String is a sequence of characters under double quotes in this case. And I want to create a div. Like all the other entries, it's just a div. It's an element with no particular semantic. Now, nice. I have this element in memory. I'm going to put it in a variable. Okay. I'm going to call it a new entry. Semicolon I usually like to add. Now inject text into the new element. Okay, so the new element, there must be a way to inject text. Now we knew that text area has the value, but what about a div? Well, the div has the text in between the tags, right? The opening and closing tag. But how can we set that? What's the name of the property that has to be set? Well, I'll tell you it's not value. Something else. How do I know? Let's go to the documentation and do an exercise of looking for the property. Now go to MDN, for example. That's the one website I recommend. I want you to look for, let's see. HTML element. Let me put it in. I know there's this object called HTML element, and there's many on the left hand side. There are the properties, and I want something that's inner text. Might be something. I want something that's inside the tag, right? Maybe inner something. I'm gonna search inner. represents the render text content of a node and its descendants. Maybe that's something promising. Click there. In a property HTML element, render x content of a node and its descendants. I can set the inner text. DOM value syntax. This is syntax. How to do it, and the value DOM string representing render text content of an element. The element itself is not being rendered. The return value is the same as node text content. This text on the property node interface presents the text content of the node and its descendants. Let's see some examples. Inner text might also be something interesting. Inner text aware of the render appearance of text while text content is not. Wait. I wanted to get to inner HTML, sorry. I'm just doing an exercise for you to show you certain things. Where is that? Inner HTML returns HTML as the name indicates. Sometimes people use inner HTML to retrieve right text side element. The text content has better performance because its value is not parsed as HTML. Moreover, using text content can prevent XSS attacks, cross-scripting. So I already know that one good way of changing the text is with text content, and I already validated that it's better to use that here by reading this because it has better performance because it's valid not parsed HTML, meaning we just want the text, right? Just plain text. And moreover, it can prevent from these security attacks called cross-site scripting, so that's a good thing. So we're going to use actually text content. All right, so go back to Atom. So I have the new entry, and to that the text content will be now the entry text that we grabbed from the text area, semicolon. But what this is doing is the following. To this new div that we created, the content, right, the text content, dot text content equals as assignment operator, assignment. We are assigning the value of the entry text variable that contains whatever we typed. Whatever the user typed is going to be assigned to the text content of the new entry div, of this div. So whatever in between the tag layer, it's going to be this whatever user typed. That's great. Finally, we need to style this thing, otherwise it's going to look ugly. So how about adding a class? But how do we add a class to a div in JavaScript? Let's look at the docs. How about class list? Well, I already knew it, so. Anyway, let's look at this doc for class list. Class list gives some examples of how to add a class or apply a class, right? We have an element, that was the attribute class. Now you can add classes or remove them. So you can see it gives an example. It's using document creator element like we used. Oh, you can set the class directly with .class name. That's nice. You can also use this thing called class list or to remove or add class. I think this is better because if you use class name, you might overwrite classes that were already applied. The thing is, you can apply multiple classes to an HTML element. It's not just one. So that's very, very common that you have an HTML element with many, many classes applied because you have different kinds of styles mixed together. So because of that, I don't really want to use class name. Otherwise, I cannot keep track of the other classes that are already applied. And if I say class name, my class is going to override all these other classes. So it's going to take away all the styles and make a mess. It might not end up well. So I want to use what's called the class list. Through this interface, I can add and remove classes just by giving the name of the class. So what we want to do is add a class to that div that we created. We can use .classlist.add, and under As the argument to this function call, you pass a string with the name of the class. Back to our text editor, we have new entry, the class list. To this class list, I want to add. What's the class we defined before? Entry, right? That's the class that is applied to each entry. That's going to add the border, the padding, and the margin at the bottom. Save it. Great. So we have that in memory, but we need to add that to the page somehow. One way we can do that was called append child. Now, append is used to add something to the end of some other element. Now, I could add to the end of body, but doesn't make sense. Then it would be coming right after the script here, whatever we typed, like this. That's not good. We want to have it right under this last entry. So because of that, I want to make the following. I want to enclose all the entries in another div. And this div will be used as the entry list. List of entries will be here. Now I need somehow to grab this div and then inject at the end. That's called append. Append a child. Append child. I'm going to give this div an ID. I'm going to say it's going to be entry list. Whatever you want to call it. Or you can call it entries. Whatever. Anyway. So I'm going to target this element here. Document get element by ID. Then I am going to add a new entry to the end. Let's do it. Let's show you the HTML on the left, the JavaScript on the right. So append new entry to the list of entries uses these. So document get element by ID to grab the entry list. And then I want to append child. Now I don't want to create a variable here. I don't have to. You know, I created variables before. This case was justified because I used it multiple times, more than once. Now this case here wasn't that justified, but I created it anyway just to make it clearer to you. And maybe it didn't find the element, so we have to handle that. We don't care about that right now. We just assume it's there. Anyway, you can chain the call here. So instead of putting that in a variable, you don't have to. You just say append child and the new entry. What this is doing is the following. So to the document get element by ID to target that list. So it's targeting this whole thing. Now you're gonna say append child. And you give some elements. So this element's in the memory right now, meaning it's not in the page yet. We take that, go to the end of the list, and we append, we add that new element, whatever I typed. And it's gonna be there. Now you can see the div comes from the creation, document create element. The class here comes from our class list add. The content inside comes from the text content. And the appearance come inside under the div at the end comes from the append child. Fine, so let me just delete the illustration of what it does. Finally, we need to clear the text area. Oh, that's it. I really need this after all. So it was worth it putting in a variable. Clear the text area. How do we do that? Remember that the text area text was inside value. Maybe we can just say the following. Text area value dot value is going to be empty string. That means whatever was typed will be now nothing. That's it. Let's try it out. I'm going to save everything. I'm going to go to the browser. And I'm going to remove this breakpoint right now. We don't need it anymore. You can do it here, right click, remove all breakpoints. Or you can click one by one. but I couldn't remove all. Okay, so let it go, refresh, new entry content. Click right, and you can see we have a new entry. And if you go to elements, expand the entry list, you can see it's right here. That's the new thing we added. Are you excited? Well, there's a lot more we can do and make it so much better. Now, the thing is, as you type new things, and you can even type something empty. Oh. So there's a lot to improve. We can validate whether the user typed something, and if the user didn't type anything, we don't want to write. And that's actually pretty easy to do. Go to your code, do the following. You can see the event listener here. Let me expand. Right after you grab the text, you can do a validation. Front end validation. You're gonna check, did the user type anything at all? If the user typed nothing, we should not do anything here. Okay. So what can we do? We can just say if. Now I'm gonna use a control flow if statement, meaning if this condition is true, do something. The condition will be if the user typed nothing. But what does the user type nothing mean? It means the value of the text area is empty. So text, the entry text in this case, right? Because we assign text area the value. If the entry text is empty, like this, you're gonna return, meaning get out of this function, we don't have anything else to do. Everything after this, if the condition is true, it will call return, and everything after will not be executed. Now what I did here is the if statement. If the condition is true, it executes whatever's in the body of the if statement. The triple equals means if this value is strictly equal to this value, meaning not only in value but in type. You can use double, but it's better to use triple because not only does it check the value, it also checks the type of the things you're comparing. Sometimes in JavaScript, you can be comparing a number with a string that contains a number character. And if you use double equals, it will try to compare those two as though they were kind of numbers. And that's not really a good thing. In the long road, it causes a lot of bugs. So I always make sure to start with strict comparison. You're only comparing strings here. You don't want to mix types in the comparison. Anyway, let's try it out, save. Now let's try typing nothing at all. I didn't type anything. I click right. Nothing happened. Very nice, right? It is nice, but the user doesn't know what happened. He's like, okay, I click, but nothing happens. Well, we should put a message there saying there was an error. We can do that in the next lesson. I'll see you then.